You send a message, and then you read it again after hitting send. Not because there was a mistake, you just needed to make sure it didn't come across the wrong way. Someone replies with "okay," and you stare at the screen for a few seconds trying to figure out what that means. You know it's irrational. You know nothing's going to change, but your brain won't stop. Most people explain it simply. You're smart, sensitive, a deep thinker, but psychology sees it differently, and what it actually says is a lot more precise. People who overthink don't think more, they protect themselves. To understand that, you have to go back, not to neuroscience, to what happened earlier. Chronic overthinking rarely develops in a calm environment. Psychologists who study rumination, those repetitive mental loops, have noticed a consistent pattern. It tends to grow in places where outcomes were unpredictable. A child who grew up in a household where the adult's mood shifted without warning, where a mistake could trigger a reaction completely out of proportion to what happened, where you had to constantly read the room, what's okay right now, what isn't, what might happen next. That child's brain makes a completely rational decision. Think ahead, anticipate. If you can figure out what's coming, you'll be safe. That's not weakness, that's adaptation, a smart nervous system doing exactly what it was taught to do. The problem is that the person grows up, the nervous system doesn't. It keeps doing what it knows, scanning, analyzing, staying alert, not because there's an actual threat, but because that's the only way it knows how to feel safe. Psychologists call this the illusion of mental progress. The brain runs through a situation once, then again, then from a different angle. It feels like an answer is about to come, but the answer doesn't come. Another question does. Because the original goal was never to find an answer. The goal was to bring uncertainty under control. And uncertainty can't be thought through to the end. It can only be tolerated. That's what explains one of the most recognizable paradoxes of overthinking. The more you think, the less certain you feel. It seems like it should work the other way. More analysis, more clarity. But in practice, every new angle adds a new variable. Every possibility generates its opposite. And someone who could have made a simple decision ends up frozen, not because they don't know the answer, but because they can't land on a level of certainty that feels like enough. This is called analysis paralysis, but underneath it is something specific, the fear of being wrong. Not just wrong, caught off guard, missing something you could have seen coming, being unprepared again. In that sense, overthinking is perfectionism applied to thought. Not, I want to do everything perfectly, more like, I can't stop until I'm sure I haven't missed anything. And that kind of certainty is never quite enough. There's another dimension to this that doesn't get talked about enough. People who overthink tend to be very good at reading other people. They pick up on tone. They notice when something's off before anyone says a word. They see subtext where others just see words. Research backs this up. Higher levels of rumination correlate with higher cognitive empathy, the ability to anticipate how another person will experience a situation. But there's a flip side. For all their ability to see others clearly, they rarely feel seen themselves. They have entire conversations in their heads with people who have no idea those conversations are happening. They analyze reactions that haven't occurred yet, and they carry this quiet, chronic sense that their inner life, too complicated, too strange, too much, will never quite be understood. But the biggest cost isn't sleep, it isn't focus, it isn't decisions, it's presence. Someone who overthinks is rarely fully here. Physically, yes. Mentally, somewhere else. Either in the past, reviewing what already happened, or in the future, rehearsing what hasn't happened yet. The present moment is more of a backdrop than a place they actually live. You're in a conversation, but part of you is already analyzing it. You're resting, but your brain is preparing for tomorrow. Life is moving, and you're still trying to understand it. That might be the most accurate way to describe it. Not exhaustion from thinking too much, but exhaustion from never being where you are. So what actually helps? Not meditation, not just stop thinking about it. That's like telling someone who's drowning to just swim. And not another self-insight, because people wired this way usually have plenty of those. They understand themselves well. That's part of what makes it hard. What actually shifts is the relationship to uncertainty. When the nervous system starts to learn, not intellectually, but at the level of felt experience, that being unprepared doesn't mean being in danger, the loop doesn't have to run as often, that you cannot know how a conversation will go
and still walk into the room, that making a mistake isn't a disaster you should have prevented, that you don't need to map out every step to be okay. It's a slow process, not through willpower, through experience that teaches the nervous system things are different now, it's safer now. Therapists who work with chronic overthinking often come back to the same thing. The problem isn't the volume of thoughts, it's what triggers them, and what triggers them is almost always one thing: the feeling that if you're not on guard, something will go wrong. People who overthink aren't broken, they were careful. Their brain did what it was trained to do: anticipate, analyze, stay ready, and it did it well. So well that it couldn't stop even long after it needed to. Overthinking isn't a flaw, it isn't a gift, it's a trace, evidence that at some point you had to pay very close attention, that this was how, once, you kept yourself safe. And the most important step isn't learning to think less, it's letting yourself feel that it's finally safe enough not to think this much, that you don't need to map out everything in advance anymore, that you can just be here,